Welcome back, my friends. Wasn't that a riot with Wild T?
Wild.
Amazing entertainer, amazing guitar player, and what a story about Bowie. Wow.
Great stories.
As you may know, if you live in the neighborhood here, that there is a massive new project happening in Lakeview, sort of just past Cawthra, between Cawthra and Dixie on the south side of Lakeshore, and it is called Lakeview Village. And we are very fortunate today to have the president of that community, of the building company, I suppose. What is your title?
I'm president of Argo Development Corporation and Lakeview Community Partners.
There you go. And this man is Fabio Mazzocco. I hope I got that right.
Got it right. Pleasure to be here with you.
And we have so many questions. First of all, welcome. Thank you for coming. And people often, when there's a big development happening in a community, the first thing that jumps out at them is there's going to be thousands of people there. It's already busy. How are we going to get around? What is sort of the plan when you introduce that many people into community to get them around?
Great question. It's many plans and many layers of transportation, and probably the most important would be, bringing a rebirth to Lakeshore Road. In the 50s, Lakeshore Road had a car on it, and there was mass transportation on Lakeshore Road. Today, it's a sea of asphalt, right? There's so much room, and it's all being used for cars.
Right.
Right? And people are speeding, and it's not moving people, it's moving cars.
Gotcha.
So the city is all over it. Jeff Wright at the city, the group, Transportation Works, they've been they've been doing EA to start, it's called Lakeshore Connecting Communities.
Okay.
It's about how they connect the Lakeshore from Toronto and Long Branch to Lakeview, Port Credit, Clarkson, and so on, right across the Mississauga boundary. And now that's coming to life. So stages 1 and 2 of that have been completed. Now the city is bringing that forward. They're hiring the engineers to actually design the right-of-way of Lakeshore and change it from car-killing right-of-way that it is today to people-friendly bikes and cyclists. Like the Waterfront Trail is an amazing place, an amazing attribute to have, not only in Mississauga, because it's the Great Canadian Trail. It can take us to Niagara Falls, take it downtown Toronto. It's such a beautiful trail that's got so much bike traffic on it. And the second you get off of that trail, you take your life in your hands.
Right.
Today, right? You know it. You've
Yes.
seen it all, right? You
Yes.
take on Hydro Road, you got to duck, and then someone's ducking on a bike, but a car's coming, they don't know, is that person turning left and going south, or are they swinging around in front of my car? Like, it's bad. It's not good today, right? But it's good news. It's all changing. All the design is coming where there'll be bike lanes, there'll be a BRT, like a central bus corridor for rapid bus transit from the Long Branch Etobicoke boundary, Toronto boundary, to Lakeview Village, basically, to East Avenue, I believe, is the limit. And then from there, it's a rapid transit corridor for transit all the way through to Port Credit and Clarkson, and even connecting us better to Oakville. So it's a massive plan, but it needs to come to life. And perhaps the first stages of it should come from the east, and we can pull all that infrastructure right into Port Credit. Port Credit's delicate because there's restaurants sharing the patios there, and it's a tight spot, and I think things have to change there and open up a little bit. But let's just start, because it's a real rough stretch of road, especially if you're a pedestrian or you're walking on Dixie. You want to go to the Small Arms building, try and crossing Dixie, and these cars is like, holy wow, it's pretty scary, but all that's changing, right?
Well, I'm glad that public transit is part of the vision now. Now, I did a gig out there in this sea of sunflowers. You guys planted, thousands, a million?
We're 2 million sunflowers in now. It's
2 million.
It's been 2 years going. Last year was the inaugural year of sunflowers. We purchased the property in March of 2018 after a year of working with. When OPG went to sale, they hired a real estate agent that brought it through a public process, and that took a long time to, go through. And we were finally selected as a preferred partner, September 2017. And Jim Tovey was still with us at the time.
Right.
And I guess we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him, because every time I saw him, in 2016, 2015, 2014, 2012, whatever, it was all, you have to see what's going to happen in Lakeview. These lands are going to change. It's going to be so cool. We're going to have music playing.
Well, this is something that really struck me, is when I played the gig. artists had been hired to do all kinds of creative stuff, and I thought that was a beautiful thing is to incorporate artists early in the project. But then I heard an announcement that there's actually going to be dedicated housing for artists. Talk a little bit about some affordable housing and how the arts are being integrated into this community.
So the arts have been embedded into the community even from its planning structure. The official plan amendment says this should be a hub of culture and arts at the piers, at the hub of the piers, because the site has the longest pier in Canada on Lake Ontario. Oh. And that's also going to be at the convergence of the 64-acre future Jim Tovey Lakeview Conservation Area. So when all those places converge, it needs the arts to bring people there, to bring the excitement. So we've been fortunate enough to partner with a group called Artscape. They're pros at bringing arts into development. We don't do art, they do, so they know what they're doing, and they have a great thing going down on the harbourfront in Toronto. You should check it out. They'll be happy to give you guys a tour. They have a place there where artists can bridge the gap from being in school to making things. And if you need to use their facilities, you can be a jewelry maker, a visual artist. They even have a studio, Eggs House. The Weekend, I think, is behind that initiative.
Wow,
really
very cool.
Super cool.
And
so they want to have an atelier at Lakeview where you actually make art. Artists live there. They have a role of making the art, which makes the community.
So it's art studios built right into the development.
You know, there's a lot of art to be made in the Lakeview community, but that's not going to sustain a maker space down there for generations. What could sustain it is a partnership with the city of Mississauga, with Artscape. And all of Mississauga's art could be created down there. Wow, we have music festivals, and you're playing the first gig on the barge. You have reserved that now.
Well, I saw they have a sort of the vision, I guess, and it's painted on a large billboard. And I noticed that there was a barge in the lake, performing to sort of like an amphitheater style area. And I said, I'd like that gig.
I'm doing that gig.
Can we book it?
Can you open for
And
Sam
I got
Roberts?
a commitment that there it is. Now,
Nice.
Which brings me to the next question. What's sort of the timeline between maybe when the first person moves in and when the last unit is filled up?
You know, it's a multi-year community. We hope to bring the waterfront first phase and open that to the public. So by 2025, the Jim Tovey Lakeview Conservation Area is going to be open. We want all that waterfront to be open, including the former power plant's waterfront. That brings 2.5 kilometers of new water, or 3.5 of new waterfront trail on the water. Right, it diverts around the power plant now. So 2025, that'll be open. Hopefully by the end of 2021, the project will be open for sale, and units will begin construction probably 2022, and people may be living there in 2024, 2025 at the earliest, right? So when the waterfront is open, the first residents are there, the conservation area is open at the same time. It's a great convergence of all these things happening. There's a huge park system that we need to construct within the Lakeview lands
I've seen
itself.
the plans.
Yeah, there's a lot of parks to be built,
but
if we start and we're working with the city, and there's a public process to dictate what will be in those parks, and then public is always, input is desired. And I think we're going to build something really special there if everybody, collaborates like it's been going so far. Well, the team we have is amazing.
It certainly is exciting. Now, I used to live on Cherryville, which is at Dixie and Lakeshore, and the big towers were there, and it did not seem like the healthiest environment. What kind of land reclamation had to be done to make this a place where people can, be comfortable letting their kids play in the dirt?
Great question, Tom. So the site itself, because it was a power plant, obviously there was a lot of things going on. But OPG, they were engineers, they were great stewards of the land. They made a slab over everything, and they lowered it down so you couldn't see what they were doing there. But the slab protected the lands from spills. There would be spills, they'd clean it up, they'd be documented. The one thing was there was a large area where there was a huge coal pile, where the largest part where we planted the most of the 1 billion sunflowers in that, where the coal pile was. It was just exposed to the environment for years and years and years. So before OPG had sold the land, they had done some remediation to that pile. They brought it down to the standards of the day. We need to just, bring it to the standards of today. So there's just a little bit more remediation we need to do. It's very minor, actually. We were quite happy, but it's more of a recycling effort there, that we were left with a slab of concrete, and below it was all this infrastructure of concrete. So, 250,000 tons of that concrete went to the Jim Tovey Conservation Area, to the Credit Valley, the TRCA, and the Region of Peel, who were building that project. And it made the outer rings to protect the energy of Lake Ontario.
There you go.
And then from within, they take money for people with fill to fill in the inner part, because they can use loose fill. But they really needed this concrete. So there was a marriage of us
So you guys
purchasing
broke up the concrete and then put it out in the lake?
And not just broke it, they
area.
broke it, and they break it, and they have magnets that come. Our partners TAC and their machines, and Priestley Demolition was their sub. They put the magnets on, they take the rebars out, the rebar gets put in a pile. You guys should see it. Like, it's the last word, 95% complete, 5 more to go, and we'd love you to see the site inside and get on the pier.
I used to live on Long
yeah.
Branch, at the end of Long Branch there, and I could see it across the water. I would love to see what's going on
Yeah,
over there.
when people get on the pier, it changes their
Because it was just
their whole perspective.
It was just
changes.
lost
Yeah.
waterfront.
Yeah.
Where it was made for you not to see it, we have to change that, right? So the sunflowers is a good start. Partnering with Artscape, we're building a discovery center on Hydro Road in Lakeshore, where there'll be a beautiful, sustainable building being built with some very cool materials. And to protect that from the waterfront trail, we put some construction hoarding up. But with Artscape, the idea is, well, let's make that a canvas. So we have 1,600 linear feet of art in COVID, where we put $100,000 out for artists. 19 different artists participated. There's even a sculpture. They just lit it last night, and it calls people to see the sunflowers. And when you get there in the sculpture, you see the hill, and then you see Lake Ontario. You see everything that
Beautiful.
Jim Tovey saw.
The public can access this, right? Or does it have to be during certain hours?
No, it's totally accessible. Last year when we did the sunflowers, everybody walked through those fields, so we knew it was unavoidable. And there's a lot of room. It's safe. People are cautious and courteous. Keep their social distancing signs, and the amount of people that come, and different families of different cultures in Mississauga. It's an Indigenous. There's an Indigenous land acknowledgement by Lynn Taylor, a beautiful local Indigenous artist. There's Duke Redbird had done a poem called "A Dish with One Spoon" that you can translate from Ojibwe to English and other languages. And then there's a great mural that tells a great story, and you can just go with your phone and learn about all the artists.
Right.
So that's just the start of what should be.
Well, it's just so refreshing to see a development that is so art-centric, instead of how can we squeeze another 1,000 people into
Correct.
the tiniest space possible, and make these shoebox condos, which in my opinion, when you drive down the QEW and you see these lines of massive condos, it's just cutting the city off from the lake. It's almost as if they're like, you can't pass here. If you don't live in this condo, you don't get to the lake. So to see those open avenues, I think it's fantastic.
The curation of the master plan of Lakeview Village was done by Sasaki. We had a worldwide competition. We had the master plan to a good point, did a lot of community engagement, and people weren't really loving it just yet. So when Sasaki came in after the competition we did, they took it to a spot that's really engaging. It brings the public to the water, it calls you, and the massing of the buildings is very friendly. It's everything stepped really far back. There's one tower that should call you from afar. It's pretty far back. And Jim Tovey said when he first saw the plans, he goes, how quick can we build this? But what kind of insulation are you going to use, right? And what kind of architect are you going to choose, right? So there's a huge process of architecture that's still going to unfold. At least we have the bones of a great master plan and a master plan architect that's going to say, hey, that looks like crap. Like, change that. Like, where's the life in that building? So we'll see if we get there. But
for people at home that, sorry for interrupting, Rick, for people at home that want to follow along They want information about, you know, what's for sale, when it's for sale, can I afford it, all that stuff. Is there a website? Is there a social media presence where people can follow along and see what's happening?
Yes, indeed, absolutely. Visit us at mylakeviewvillage.com.
mylakeviewvillage.com, unless you put up a link for that. Thank you.
We're on Instagram at mylakeviewvillage, Twitter as well, LinkedIn, I think most of the platforms, YouTube. We have some great visualizations. Last night there was a public development committee meeting where our project was the focus, and there was a beautiful video presented, a lot of great input from the community. So, you know, we're happy to share and happy to learn more, but we'd love to have you down at the site to see the
Well, we'd love to see it, and we'd like to have you back when things have moved forward and we can discuss some more details.
And the Friday night music series still continues. I think we're 2 weeks in. It had to move to Stonehooker because of COVID restrictions.
We love Stonehooker, friend of the show.
So they're still playing there, and there's 4 more weeks to go. So
and I think it's Susie McNeil and Andrew McTaggart this Friday.
This Friday?
If I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Well, Fabio, thanks so much for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for putting arts first in a development, which is something I've never heard of before. And we look forward to having you back soon.
It's an honor. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And we'll be right back.